Hey everybody, how's everybody doing here? The Mining Miner, thanks for following. And who we got in chat? We got Bruce Humblehand, we got Steve PHL, Inspiration Aviation, Magus, Diego BRQ, hello folks, Ex Aviation CEO, Smiley0201, and Alpha 12 125. Welcome. Bodie Fox, Smiley, again, I've actually mentioned you already, WBS 52, and IT Galad. Welcome, everybody. Yep, it's a cover of Europe. Okay, so let's get this show on the road here. I'm not going to be talking in chat too much this time. We're going to pretty much blast straight through the sort of show off demo presentation here, something like that. And we're going to go and talk about avionics today, specifically what we've done with respect to synthetic vision, weather radar, and things like charts and little nice things. Magus, welcome. And actually, and Swanee9039, welcome. So let's jump in here, get into the airplane. Gonna go ahead and get the payload manager here to close that door up for us. I was doing the flight in this thing, so it's still fairly warm on the engine side. So if I go up here and put the battery up, and actually I'm gonna turn on sound. Again, I forgot to put the, actually it's not gonna matter very much. So let's just go ahead and put this thing up here. This over like that. Oh, temperature is showing pretty good there. But I'm pretty sure that the engine's a lot warmer inside. It's just the ITT has not picked it up. The ITT probe has not picked up the temperature here. Iron Condor simulation, welcome. And hello, Brett San. McTrying. How's everybody doing there? Shifty FR, welcome. So we're going to be talking about avionics here today. So we're going to be mostly concerned with these cute little screens. As you can see, we're already showing it up here. It's our synthetic vision display. So what's synthetic vision? In a nutshell, it's just showing basically the outside world, a projection from the database. And Reich F16, welcome. It's showing a projection from the terrain awareness and warning system database up into your PFD. So you can pop that out like that. You can even pop these out into an external window if you wanted to and reposition it onto a different monitor. We have a powerful system in the airplane for cockpit builders where you're going to be able to basically write a little configuration file. Will it come with the Smart Copilot? No, not out of the box anyway. We might do one later, but not for now. So we have a powerful configuration tool in the airplane that's going to allow cockpit builders to pop these screens out and position them anywhere they want on different monitors and that kind of stuff. And it's going to be persistent and without the bezels and all that kind of good stuff. So you're going to be able to integrate it into your cockpit. Engage brain and long-term memory. So what's the TAWS system? So I was talking about this a little bit in the newsletter and in the forum post, but it's the terrain awareness and warning system. So if I bring up these couple of panels here, you take the inner FMS knob here, you're going to see you got a little pop-up screen over here, and what it says that we've got a couple of pages in this page group here. And so what we're going to want to go down is all the way down to the TAWS B group. It's the Terrain Awareness and Warning System, Type B. And so what this is in the real airplane, it's a database that's stored on an SD card, and that tells the airplane what the terrain shape. I'm in the middle of the ocean, so it doesn't really have any terrain outside of basically where just the island is located. And so it's a database for. Can you test these warning systems? No, the tests are automated. It's a database that is normally stored in the airplane on an SD card. In the simulation here, what we've done is, nobody really likes to maintain a database. Outer marker, yes, it does. Yes, it uses the X-plane ARAC. So nobody really likes to maintain a terrain database. Hey, John Fizza. Nobody really likes to, well, for example, we don't want to ship a terrain database that's going to be, 5 years down the line is going to require an update. And even so, it's just going to make the airplane huge. You've already got a terrain database in the aircraft. It's literally just what X-plane uses to draw the terrain here, right? So how we've done this is we've implemented our terrain awareness and warning system to directly read the X-plane terrain data from disk, whatever your, yeah. Yeah, no, it's byte 512. It is not range limited to loaded DSFs. It actually uses its own multi-threaded DSF loader internally, and so it can render out to any distances. Basically, an arbitrary distance is representable in this system. So if I take the range up here, I can take it out to 200 miles. If I switch it over like that, you can see, yeah, we got basically about 200 miles of range here on the terrain awareness and warning system. If I had enough, tiles around me. If you're in the middle of populated terrain, obviously these are not going to be pink. They're going to actually contain terrain data. Yes, terrain mode on the map works as well. So if we go back into the normal map mode here, we can go into map and turn on terrain, and that works as well. So that's sort of a mix of the normal map and this terrain. The TOS system is a dedicated mode just for terrain awareness. El Promo, welcome to Bravo Mike. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Can the TOS be disabled? Yes, it can be disabled. Just hit this button here. Hit that button there, and it's going to inhibit it. Just like the real thing. If you read the manual, it's exactly the same way you would do it in the real airplane. So that is the terrain and warning system. And to show it off to you properly, we're going to actually take off here, and we're going to mess around here with the airplane. So actually, we'll keep the generator currently to off. Let me see what's my volumes here. They're pretty good. Okay. Coming up on the auxiliary boost pump. We got a clear situation around the airplane. I'm just going to quickly check the payload manager. I don't have any of the flags or attachments. How much fuel we got? 82 gallons. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. That's enough for testing. External view for the startup. Anything for you, Diego. And I guess you guys want it loud. Okay. All again, warning to headphone users, it's going to be loud. So, coming up. That, and since we're started it, we're just going to go ahead here, put our headset on, and it should make the airplane quite a bit more quiet. Actually, I forgot to put on the parking brake here, so we got to put that up in there, and then I can actually remove the chocks. So after start items, we can verify that we get the starter off. You got the ignition off, so go down here, turn the inertial step on. Oh, generator is coming to on, or main. There we are. Actually, I survived it. Just about flicked the battery switch on fast enough. We got the battery amp caution. That's normal. That's expected. We got bleed messages off. AC's auto. That's all looking good. Okie doke. And let's go ahead and inertial step is on, so we actually saw a bit of a rise in ITT here from the inertial step coming on. Perfect. So parking brakes coming off. Normally we would turn on the nav. Now the taxi lights on. You're going to verify that there's nobody around the airplane at this point. We can also select our flaps to take off. So flap handles over here. We can verify that the flaps are indeed moving down to the takeoff position, and everything is looking good. I'm going to push my little button for going into beta mode. I'm going to push that and go pull the lever back, and now we're in beta. And we can go ahead and taxi. Normally, we would leave the pitot and stall messages up here for taxi. That's fine. We expect those there. You can also pre-select an altitude here for some air work. Let's say about 2,000 feet is enough for today. Check right and left. And I realize I'm just a little bit too close with my chair to my pedals here, and I am having some trouble to get on the full deflection on the pedals. So we'll verify left and right is clear. So strobe is coming on. That on. Actually, now it's on. Perfect. And we'll also set runway heading here for departure. Just as a quick reminder, there's about runway heading there. Go ahead and put the stall and pitot heats now on. And also for, you can get flight director guidance for takeoff. I'm just going to put my feet on the brakes here. And it's this little button here on the side of the throttle, that's called the toga button. Unlike in a big airliner, does the TBM not have a beacon like, no it doesn't. Well, it sort of does. It's not selectable. It's on the wings, it's just a flasher, and it's always on whenever the airplane's on. Yeah, and this is called the toga button. Unlike on an airliner, it doesn't actually control throttle, so you can see that I've still got manual control of the throttle. And ignore the shaking of the throttle. That's literally just my bad pot here on the throttle that I have. So all you got to do is push this, and it's going to give you takeoff mode for takeoff roll, takeoff pitch. Flight director is on. It's going to give you wings level, 10 degrees nose on. Yes, the anti-collision light is on the battery. It's just always on. Whenever you put the battery switch on, it's automatically going to come on. Cool beans. So, right. Actually, okay, there we go. Perfect. I'm not really, actually, I'm going to go and set a manual landing field elevation. Normally, you wouldn't be doing this on the runway, obviously, that would be kind of dumb. I'm currently have it set to 29 feet, but that's not correct for the field that I am at. We're just going to cruise around the same field, so I'm just going to set the field elevation here and the landing field elevation selector. And since I don't want to be entering flight plan, I'm just going to go into system, manual LFE. I'm just going to use these controls here to put in about 150 feet. That's looking good. Perfect. And you can obviously go into like these custom systems here and verify all your little gizmos. Sweet. So with that out of the way, we've got verified that battery is charging less than 50 amps. So let's just set our takeoff trim. It actually is looking pretty good, so I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead and take off. Oh, so power's coming into flight range. Gonna bring it up to about 50% on the torque. That's a little bit more. Bring it up to about 50% on the torque. I'm looking for 2,000 RPM on the engine there. Just about now in the governed range. I can go ahead and release brakes and keep pushing power slowly forward until we reach about 95 to 100%. And just a slight tap on the pedals there just to maintain directional control. That's about there. Power set. 85 knots. We can go ahead and rotate for takeoff. Just an easy takeoff there, right there. Ever so slightly back pressure on the yoke there. Tap the brakes and go ahead and raise the gear. The gear is now coming up. Gonna give myself a little bit of forward trim. We're at a safe altitude here, so let's see, flaps are coming up and the yaw damper is gonna come on. Gotta do a little bit cross-handed here because of my controls. And there we go. It was about a stable climb. Cool. So, as you can see throughout the entire takeoff procedure there, you can see on the synthetic vision it actually showed us the runway that we were departing out of. I'm just going to go ahead and level off here and reduce power to a little bit of a light light cruise, not very far. We don't want to go too far away from the runway here. Actually, I want to turn around and head back to the runway pretty soon because I want to show you what the approach looks like. So I'm going to actually make the screen quite a bit larger here so you guys can see it better. Obviously if you have a big monitor, it's going to look a lot clearer and easier to read. And we can go ahead and get rid of that inset map here because it's just annoying me. That's about 2,000 feet. So for the airwork here, I'm not going to even bother with trying to select, you know, approach mode or something like that. Yep, custom pop-outs, exactly. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of the flight director here. Already started its function. We're only on the yaw damper at this point. And so I'm going to just go ahead and turn around. You can see there on the horizon here, we actually get heading numbers. They're about every 30 degrees is where they appear. We can actually configure that. We can go into PFD, synthetic vision, and we can turn off horizon headings if you don't want that there, if it's annoying to you. And we also get airport signs. I don't know if I'm far enough. You actually have to be about 15 miles, between 15 and 8 miles away from the airport to actually be able to see the airport signs. Hey folks, hey Scroll and hey Jafaliano, how are you doing? So if we turn around here, I'm being a little bit of a bad pilot here with the way I'm flying. I'm giving it a 45-degree angle here on the turnaround. We're probably a little bit too close to the airport, so no, it is. So you can see there's an airport label telling us that we're heading towards Sierra Charlie India Papa, and it's actually going to fade away as we get closer. There it goes, basically telling us that we're close enough that we already got to be either in an approach mode or something. It's basically just to let you pick up where the airport is, right? So I'm going to come and actually, I'm going to pull the power almost all the way out. I just want to decelerate here. Right now, I can already see the number for the airport, for the runway growing there, and I can already see an approach box. So it's basically letting me know what the approach pathways look like. And I'm going to be a bit of a bad pilot here, so for the purposes of simulation, it's going to be a bit of an immersion break, but I'm just going to go ahead and pull the airplane back a little bit. I should have basically approached the airport a little bit further out, but you get the point. I'm just going to aim for those approach boxes. I can still see runway 28 over there in the distance. I'm below 178, so I can go ahead and drop gear, drop first stage of flaps. That's going to decelerate the airplane quite a bit. You can see that the velocity vector there is rising up quite far. It's normal for the TBM to actually have a negative angle of attack. The wing is just so much lift that as soon as you drop any amount of flaps, the airplane is just going to want to balloon like crazy. And even with full flaps, as soon as we put in full flaps, you'll see that the airplane is actually just going to want to have to. 500. We're going to have to be dragging it in with nose down almost to basically just maintain the approach path. Okay, so we're about down to center of the boxes here, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the full flap action right there. Flaps actually take quite a bit of time to deploy, about 35 seconds all the way from nothing to fully down. So I'm about on path here, about on power, so I'm going to give it about 15% of NG. That's going to give us, or 15% of torque. That's going to give us about the stable approach power. Runway number is just about sticking now itself back onto the runway, and there we go. There's the threshold. There's a little bit of a misalignment between the synthetic vision and the external situation there on the runway. That's quite normal. It happens even in real synthetic vision. So right now the synthetic vision is kind of annoying at this point. I kind of let the airplane drop there, so now I'm going to put the airplane back up to idle. You wouldn't be having this trouble if you were messing around with the synthetic vision as I am. There we go. There's a touchdown. And if we don't want to be stopping here, so I'm just going to put the flaps back up to takeoff position. I'm going to retrim it back to a takeoff value, and I'm going to put the power back in. Trim's about done. Pull the power to take off. There's 90 knots. And let's go ahead and take off again. Tap the brakes. I want to give myself about 10 degrees or so. And there we go. Flaps. I'm sorry. Gears coming up. That was the approach pathways for a visual approach. They're going to be white. If you have a GPS approach, they're going to be pink or magenta, and if you're doing an ILS approach, they're going to be green. That's the way that thing works. We're actually pretty safe altitude. You can reduce the flaps here, bringing them up all the way. I'm going to reduce the power, and we're going to do a little bit of aerial work around the airport. I'm going to pretend we're going to be flying into some terrain here. So I'm going to turn around here like that. Actually, I can turn on the yaw damper so the airplane helps me out with yaw trim. So now I don't have to, I don't have to coordinate turns anymore. I don't have to put in P factor correction, rudder trim, or something like that. The airplane's just going to do it all by itself. It basically watches this here, the slip and skid indicator, and it coordinates the turns automatically for me. So we're about 1,200 feet, and let's say that we're a little bit inattentive, and we're going to be descending down to about 1,000 feet. And Sporadic Sanity, thanks for following, man. And Pesty BT, also thanks for following. Let's say we're a little bit inattentive here, and we're just cruising along. We're slowly descending. We're not paying attention to the fact that there's terrain ahead.
Terrain ahead.
And we're going to get terrain cautions there. First thing.
Terrain ahead. Pull up.
And it's also going to light up there on the synthetic vision, telling us exactly where it thinks that we're going to impact. You can see that if I turn, actually it's going to adjust that impact prediction because it knows that. It knows the trend, so it knows that we're going to be turning.
Pull up. Pull up. Pull up.
So you don't want to be hitting that.
Pull up. Too low. Terrain.
And there we are. About stable flight there. We've avoided that bit of a catastrophe that could have happened. Yeah, so it's going to let you know exactly where it thinks you're going to impact. You can also see the thing on the sort of more classic display where if I bring this up into the terrain awareness and warning system, I'll take the range down about, I don't know, maybe 5 miles, something like that. So we're going to, again, so we're at 2,000 feet, and Tech, thanks for the follow, and Tech Attacks, thanks for the follow as well, man. Welcome. So it's also going to do that same kind of indication here on the sort of top-down view. You can see it's sort of starting to fill in the yellow there. That just means that that portion of the terrain is less than 1,000 feet below the airplane. And you can actually verify that the GPS is picking up a correct altitude. Here's the GPS altitude readout, which might actually be different from your altimeter readout because of barometric considerations. So GPS altitude readout, that is literally what the GPS is indicating above, its mean sea level. So that'll be basically true altitude. And Captain Canada, welcome, man. And thanks for the follow as well. Okay, so I've kind of been a little bit of a ham-fisted flight here because I've had the yaw damper on, so if I go like this, you'll notice that if we go past about 45 degrees of bank here, the yaw damper kicks off. So the yaw damper is actually aware of the bank, and if you're doing steep turns, it turns itself off. Because it's not designed to coordinate beyond that level. So if I now go like this, you'll see that the
terrain
impact prediction is actually going to understand.
Terrain ahead. Pull up.
It's going to actually paint the impact points on the top-down view as well as the synthetic vision.
Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Too low. Terrain.
So we could literally, just, for funsies, we could pull the airplane back here, and for testing, let's go ahead and we're flying in severe bad weather, right? So we'll go ahead and here, go into flight setup, and just bring the visibility, just make it absolutely catastrophic. So we're going to make it like, I don't know, at 3 IFR conditions. It's going to be not overcast. We're going to make it stratus visibility, absolutely nothing, 500 feet visibility. So I can't see anything. And now you can really see the value of having synthetic vision. Because I can easily, I don't have to even be able to see what's going on outside until in real life. You'd be relying on things like your navigation map. And although the navigation map, it's a good tool. Top of the map. The navigation map is a good tool to have, but if it's not as intuitive as the synthetic vision here. So the synthetic vision, you can just basically think of it, it's like what's basically happening outside
Terrain
of the airplane.
ahead.
So it's telling me at this point that there's
Terrain
probably
ahead.
some problem ahead. It's going to
Terrain
start painting a
ahead.
yellow point,
Pull
and
up.
there we go.
Pull up.
So I could literally
Pull
just
up.
go ahead and
Pull
turn
up.
away from that terrain.
Ahead.
And now it's not predicting the impact anymore, but if I sort of round out here...
Terrain ahead. Terrain ahead.
Again,
pull up.
You know,
Pull up.
it does take trends into account for how you're flying. Now I can see over there is runway 28. Let's go ahead and if we can, in order to fly the runway without, you know, so much as being able to see
Terrain
the approach path.
ahead. 500. Terrain ahead.
Now it's actually noticing that there's a mountain behind the runway.
Terrain ahead. Terrain ahead.
We're not directly
pull
in the approach
up.
path, so
pull
it
up.
thinks that we're
pull
not
up.
directly lined up for that runway. There we go. And are we going to be able to actually see the runway here?
Terrain ahead.
Probably not. We're just so... It's just...
Think rate.
The visibility
pull
is just
up.
so poor.
Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Think rate.
But if I bring the visibility up a little bit, up a notch... So let's put this up over like that, and we're gonna make you're gonna have a, you know, gonna make it into a, there we go, there's the runway, and just based on synthetic vision, we could literally just fly down the runway. Now, it's not recommended. This is not, you know, what synthetic vision really is meant for, but in a pinch, you could even land with the synthetic vision. It's fairly inaccurate down by the ground, so do take that into account. You're going to want to flare early, and you're going to want to make sure that you understand what the limitations are. But as long as you're flared, you know, you're a little bit nose high, you're expecting that bump, and you're watching your radio altimeter here, you're going to be probably all right. You're going to be able to survive that. So synthetic vision, good thing to have even in an emergency. Sporadic sending is not. It's not Gizmo or Sassel. It's purely C code. Okay, so that's, you know, pathways also, by the way, I'd have to program in a flight path, but it actually even shows your flight path en route, so it knows, you know, if you're going to be able to fly through the boxes even at like 30,000 feet. That works as well. Get rid of this. Get rid of that weather here. And actually, I'm just going to go ahead and select cab OK or something like that. Drag it around like that until we are back in normal weather and we're back in normal conditions. So that was synthetic vision. Let's talk about another thing. I'm going to make it a little bit stormy here. I'm going to, for testing purposes, I'm not going to actually drag the airplane up. I'm just going to go ahead and pre-select a new altitude. So like that. I'm going to sync my heading here, hold the current heading. I'm going to give it a bunch of power. I'm just going to do an absolute pop-up here in terms of airspeed and rate of climb. So I'm going to go up to about, oh, let's say 9,000 feet. Absolutely well. Okay, so we've pre-selected 9,000 feet. We'll let the airplane accelerate here, and just for funsies, we're going to go ahead and let the airplane absolutely go crazy. So the best rate of climb on the airplane is 124 knots. You know, we're doing 200. So what do you think it's going to actually look like when we go ahead and select flight level change here? So select FLC, pull the speed all the way down to about 124. Let's see what the airplane's going to do to try to attain that airspeed. So 5,000, 6,000 feet, just about topping 6,000 feet. Let's check out that nose attitude. So we are going quite a bit up. Obviously, it's not going to be able to maintain that. As soon as the speed decays, the climber is actually going to become much more sensible. Will I demo the hypoxia? Yes, Mr. Chu. We're going to do that on Friday. Sweet. Oh, like $20 aircraft. Yeah, right. Okay, so with that done, let's go ahead and do a little bit more testing here on the avionics. So we've got about, 4,500, 5,000 feet. And we're going to push the power a little bit harder here. Actually, we got plenty of temperature and range on the NG here. So, does it have a stick pusher and auto level feature? No, it currently doesn't. There is a software update for that is available to TBM 900 owners that will give you that ability. We might put that into a subsequent update, but it's not going to be in the 1.0 release at this time. So you'll see that we are actually we're at 6,000 feet. We could conceivably now turn off the inertial SEP. The inertial SEP is that door and the intake that like redirects certain air around the engine or away from the intake to make sure that it's not ingesting FOD. But before we do that, we want to reduce torque at least to below 80%, and because you're going to see what happens when we turn the inertial SEP off here. So close that. Inertial SEP message is going to go away. But get rid of those thumbnails. But you're going to see that the torque actually starts increasing and the ITT comes down. It's not going to go immediately. It is going to take quite a bit of time. It's designed to take about 40 to 45 seconds to go from fully open to fully closed. And the reason for that is quite simply because the engine's fairly large and there's a lot of airflow, so you don't want to be disrupting the airflow by rapidly and abruptly reconfiguring the intake. You want to change the intake geometry gradually. Now you see there's a bit of a spike there, and that's about just the final close of the inertial SEP. We've lost about 50 degrees on the ITT there, gain about 15% on the torque in the climb, and there we go, just about level off, and we are pretty good here. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Glad you're happy. Okay, so let's mess around with the weather radar here. So we do have a full simulation of the GWX-70 airborne solid-state weather radar, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So it's in here. I'm going to bring up, it's in the first page group. Third page here is the weather radar, and what it is, right now it is turned off. So it's a solid-state ace on the dark. Yes, that is the interior. The interior is pretty much all completed at this point. So the airborne, the GWX-70 is a solid-state weather radar. So what it means is, traditionally weather radar would have a big, powerful ray tube. Effectively, imagine a big amplifier for a big amplifier for a typical voice kind of thing. It would contain a large amplification tube, vacuum tube, and it would basically beam out that radio energy out into the atmosphere, and you then have a little antenna there that receives that energy and interprets that into an image. What a solid-state radar is, the difference, we gotta make sure that we don't over torque. Yeah, actually we're pretty good. What the solid state is that instead of having a vacuum tube, it contains a bunch of transistors effectively that produce the very high frequency, high energy pulse in a very short pulse. That's really the hard part. You don't want to have a weather radar signal that is like, you don't want to be beaming it out all the time. You want to send out as short a pulse as you can, because that then determines your resolution. Right now, the weather radar is turned off. We're going to go in here in the mode setting. We can go either directly to the weather or ground mode, or we can set the weather radar over to standby. In standby mode, it immediately the weather radar performs a bunch of tests, boots up the electronics, does a bunch of servo tests, and then becomes available to immediately turn on. Whereas, where's the bathroom? There's no bathroom. Whereas if this were a magnetron, a classical vacuum tube radar, it would take about a minute and a half for the thing to warm up to operating temperature before it became available. So we're going to go in here straight up into the ground mode, and after a couple of seconds of warm up, there we go. I have the weather radar here accelerated a little bit. In real life and in the final product, it's actually going to take about 10 seconds for the full boot up sequence and testing. I'm going to demonstrate adding a few CVs. Yes, we will do that in just a second here, Diego BRQ. We're going to show you what the weather looks like. So I'm going to turn the airplane around, and right now I have it set to ground mode. Growl, yes, there will be a CSL. The fuel tank selector is automated, yes. Inspiration Aviation. So I'm going to turn around here, and you're going to see, I'm going to bring the range down here quite a bit, actually. So we're at 60 miles. I'm going to bring the range down to 40 miles. What I'm trying to look here, so let's say that we're not you know, quite sure where that island is. We're going to make the visibility here just a little bit worse. So let's say, actually, you know, visibility is about 10 miles. We got some broken cumulus layer here that is making a little bit harder for us to be able to see the island there. X-Plane, would you please actually give me my visibility? Oh, there we go, just about. So if I turn around now, I should be able to make out the island there on the radar. X-Plane, the dynamic livery thing. It's not quite like that. And there we go. So now you can see that the radar is picking up the island. We can even play around with the tilt. So, for example, if we're not getting enough resolution, I can basically tilt the antenna down until at this point we're already so far down, we're even painting the water here. And if I play around enough with the tilt, you can actually see in real time how it's sort of shifting the scan pattern. So from down low, I'm going to bring it up and up and up and up and up, and it's basically now kind of gone off the horizon there. There's a little island there. And what we can, another thing that we can do is, for example, well, we can even see the island at this point on the synthetic vision here. That's kind of taking the guesswork out of that. But let's say that we don't have synthetic vision, or we don't see stuff on there. And there we go. So the real purpose of the radar would be nice. That'll be kind of interesting, as we could, for example, let's say that we're not down at 9,000 feet, 20 miles away from the island. Let's say we're at, oh, I don't know, we're up at 25,000 feet or something like that, for basically up at cruise altitude. I'm going to go into like that. I'm just for testing here, I'm just going to shove the airplane up into 28,000 feet. Let's get rid of you, and I'm going to advance a bunch of power here. We're going to pull the aircraft away from the island. So let's pretend that we are quite far away from the island at this point. And so just for my measurement here, it's not even showing up on the nearest page. So let's go ahead and do this. So we get a distance reading. So we're about 80 miles away from the island here. Now obviously when we look outside, 80 miles, we're not going to be able to see anything. So what we can do, it's not even going to show up on the synthetic vision at this point. It's just too far away. So what we can do is we can bring up the weather radar here, bring up the range, and there we go. About 80 miles away, we can see some sort of a nugget of something, nugget of truth. We can even enhance painting here, so we can go into the gains control. If the island is too small or something, we are having trouble picking it up, we can boost the gain on the weather radar. And it might actually, it might even like improve if there's some special feature that we're looking for. We can go ahead, and if you're, for example, we're looking for a very far resolution, we can go ahead and select the bearing pointer here. You'll use the left and right push on the knob here to put the bearing pointer over what you want to examine. And then we'll bring the selector here over to the sector scan mode. We'll select a narrower scan, so we'll select a 20-degree scan, and this will now give us a very frequent update on that picture right there. Currently, it's not going to work. It's not going to work with XMVR. We need to get some more infrastructure to get XMVR working with that. So it's going to work with stock X-Plane weather for now. And I'm going to deselect and gain back to calibrated mode, and we can go back into full scan mode. So that's the ground mode. Let's go ahead and put some, put some weather in here. For that, I'm actually going to pull the airplane down low, so we're a little bit sort of more in between the individual buildups. I'm going to select a lower altitude, let's say 13,000 feet. Sounds pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and type in 13,000. Obviously we get the torque spike there, but that's good. And there we go. Let's go ahead and latch on to 13,000. I'm just using, this is just default clouds. Yeah, this is just stock stuff. You can even see that at the lower altitude we're sort of at a shallower angle to the island, so we'd have some more trouble picking it up. It's a weaker return, so you can see that it's basically this little blue down here, so it's a weak return at this point. We could go ahead and boost the gain again, and play around with the positioning to get somewhat more enhanced definition of the edges and that kind of stuff. We'll return that back over there. We'll switch over to the weather mode, and in the weather mode it still is actually able to indicate terrain. It's just the sensitivity of the reception is quite a bit turned down, because weather returns more basically radar energy than just getting a pinpoint ground return. Ground returns are strong enough, it's just they are fairly scattered around, so you gotta have the sensitivity higher. Well, let's see if we can paint the island here from this distance just using weather mode. I can sort of make it out there. Just go ahead and tilt the radar down just a little bit more. It's fairly weak there on the weather mode up to at 60 miles, even at full gain, so probably it's going to enhance as we get closer. And Bite 512 fly, thanks for following. Okie doke, so let's go ahead and put in some weather. We're in weather mode right now. Go back, put in some weather here. Make it interesting. We'll make, just pick some sort of a stormy preset or something like that. Low visibility, nah. Let's go for overcast cumulus. Looking good, and we're going to give it a fair amount of precip. So there's a good chance it's going to show up on the weather radar there. I'm just going to wait for X-Plane to generate its weather. Hopefully it's not going to take too long. And hopefully it's actually going to generate some storm clouds for us. Yeah, of course it didn't. So we got to actually boost the thing quite a bit. X-Plane sometimes it just doesn't want to generate any storms. Let's put in a bunch of storms, something like that. Sure. Maybe. Ah, there we go. Now we got some cells actually showing up. And we are actually in some icing conditions here. So we're going to actually turn on the inertial sep here. First thing you always want to turn on is your inertial separator. Now wanna reconfigure you or something. Oh, wrong cloud layer. It's like giving me a bunch of extra cloud here. Oh, there we go. Just about. Okay, now we're sort of outside the immediate cells. Yes, it will work with the XP-NOAA plugin, because the XP-NOAA plugin just drives the X-Plane weather. Yeah, let's go ahead and blow some hot air on the windshield there. Let's focus upon here. And we can even see the island there still being picked up by the weather mode. We do have some cells. Actually, I want to put these guys up a little bit harsher and more preset. I want to make sure that it actually generates some interesting cells. Oh, there we go. Now we're talking. So your weather radar is normally designed for you picking your way through immediate weather. So it's not really designed for, you know, distant strategic analysis. It's meant more for, you know, this kind of stuff. Like I can see that there's a cell, you know, 10 miles ahead of me. I want to steer clear of that. So normally you, at this point, talk to your ATC and request a diversion here. So you'd go to, like, I don't know, request 30 degrees left or something like that, and I'll just wait for the radar picture to repaint. It actually is scanning and repainting in real time, so if you're turning very, very harshly, then the radar image will actually, you know, sort of drag itself. It'll smudge itself out. Put a bunch more power on there. And I think we're actually icing up a little bit there. Yep, we are. So we'll turn on the airframe de-icer. Although I'm going to be talking about that later on in a later stream. And actually, you know what? Just to get rid of the icing here, because it's annoying, I'm just going to bring up the outside air temperature. And even more so that we get like tropical conditions down by at sea level. Okay, so apparently we are in some sort of a storm cell at this point. Are we actually going to be able to make that out on the gain? We already got gain boosted all the way. It's still fairly mild. I can see if we flew into that red there, it'd be kind of different. We'd be a lot more beat up at this point. So if we want to, you know, analyze stuff that's sort of further out, obviously at this point we could just go ahead and take the bearing pointer, point it at something, and just tell the weather radar that, hey, I'm interested in getting a frequent refresh of that. So let's say we want to set it out to 40 degree, a 40 degree sector scan, and that, and one more down on the range, and I'm sort of interested just in that stuff there. And it's kind of stopped. So we could conceivably like pick our way around this sort of build up here. We could even do a thing called vertical cell analysis, where we could point the bearing pointer at something, like say that cell right there, and we'll switch over to the vertical scan mode, and then the radar is going to go into a kind of analysis mode where it gives us the vertical extent of the cell. So we'll go down, bring the range down, and it's a little bit too far on the range down. So we expect, like, the cell I can see here is pretty much equal altitude to us, so it's going to go down. This is pretty much ground level at this point. We're 13,000 feet, so our ground level will be about here. You can see that that cell is definitely not safe to fly through. We want to either climb above it or fly around it. Switch back to horizontal mode, and we'll want to do some more analysis up in our flight path. So flight path says that we're pretty much going to be safe. That's about, you know, this is about our nose heading. It's a little bit of green there. Obviously, if the weather is not showing up what you think is there, you can go ahead and play around with the gain. The gain control can enhance the visibility of something. Actually, I want to put that back over there. Switch over to the gain selector and see if we can see something more. And especially one thing that you're going to notice is that as I increase the gain here, you can see that that cell there that was really hard to see, it all of a sudden just grew. So that's one thing that we have simulated here, is the fact that there's depletion in the energy, right? So the radar beam has to pass through water and it has to reflect back for you to be able to see something. So that means further out it's actually less powerful. So if we boost the gain here, see, we can actually start picking out features that have just been too weak and below our sensitivity threshold. It doesn't actually change the radiation energy, it just changes the sensitivity on the receiver, so it's more willing to paint sort of more fine detail there. So here probably want to again deviate a little bit around that cell, and also turn on a little mode here that's called watch. It's not really picking up anything right now. I'm gonna get rid of watch for now. 60-degree scan. The radar is designed for what they call 5 looks per minute, 5 LPM. So that means per minute it actually gives you 5 sweeps, or actually 6 sweeps. So it goes 6 times from one side to the other. The radar doesn't have, but what the radar doesn't have, that's important detail here. That's, again, accurate to a real thing. Not because we didn't want to implement it, it's literally just because the airplane doesn't have it. There we go. Actually, we're pretty good here. We're going to be just about, there's a little cell there, that's probably that feature. We're going to be passing by pretty soon. I'm going to turn off the limited sector scan, so I'm going to go to full scans again. And we can get rid of that bearing pointer. And yeah, this here build up right to our right here, that's probably this here clump. You can see that it sort of extends above us. There might be some stuff that we're going to be flying through here, so I probably want to avoid that. Call about 20 degree left or deviation. Make clear mix and rime icing depending on OAT, or is it? No, it's just ice. X-Plane doesn't give us the information on what kind of ice it'd be. Like, it's kind of amazing that we already are able even to get anything out of X-Plane, really. Obviously, at this point, we would want to avoid this stuff. There's some possibility that this is going to be X-Plane thinking that there's some place or some precip. X-Plane's weather model is very, very limited, so we sort of had to, you know, hustle quite a bit to even get this amount of information out of it. And yeah, that's about the extent of stuff here. And keep in mind, though, we pull the airplane, like I'm going to position the airplane here just like, I don't know, like that, something. And we're going to turn to the left here. I'm going to show you what that there's a, if you're at fairly high altitude, let's say you're, you know, we're flying at 18,000 feet or something like that. I'm going to go up and shoot up there, give it a bunch of power, go into flight level change mode. We just want to get the airplane up there very quick. 125 about there's maximum rate of climb. Just want to shoot up to 18,000 feet. I'm going to point the radar in the direction of that, build up right there in front of us. So one of the things you have to understand that the radar, what is my current weather preference? I just use default weather, Steve. That really works for me. I don't really anything too fancy. So we're pretty much able to see. So this cell right here is what we're picking up on the radar here. You can see sort of it's kind of that same shape. One thing that you have to understand is that that the radar is a flashlight, right? So it's actually a 10-degree cone. So let's put it like that, right? The 10-degree cone, 5 degrees up, 5 degrees below some center point, and the radar is stabilized. So the stab on here means that the stabilizer is on. So the antenna actually tries to maintain the horizon if I have the tilt set to 0 degrees. And as soon as I, for example, you know, exceed 15 degrees pitch up or down, the radar basically is not going to be able to follow or stabilize to that value. There's a stabilization limit on there. Right now, it's showing that I've got the tilt set to 0 degrees, but that means again it's 5 degrees up and 5 down. So we might be showing weather here that is not actually equal altitude to us. What we're going to do here is we can actually tilt the radar up about 4 degrees, and we're going to see if it's still showing up. This is going to give you about 1 degree down below your flight path, and about 9 degrees above your flight path. So that's basically showing stuff that is equal altitude or above you. And I can see that there's still just about, you know, if I put it to 4.5, 5 degrees, it just about disappears there. But there's still some possibility that I have some buildup up here, so I'm going to go into the gain control, set it up again to maximum gain. I'm going to see if I can analyze that. Not really, it doesn't seem to be. This is just a slight sort of sliver of the weather that I'm catching here. It's just the gain control is just going haywire with the weather, with the data there. So we're just about equal altitude with that weather. There's some possibility that it is equal to us. We could conceivably bring up the vertical scan mode here. And I'm just going to wait for the antenna to return back to the scan position. You got to keep track of this manually, so... It's not... Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's just about almost equal altitude, so we'd probably want to climb a little bit to be above it, or just deviate just a little bit around it if we didn't want to have... There's some turbulence above the rain clouds usually, so there's some possibility that we could be hitting that there. Remember, guys, the weather radar does not show clouds, it shows precipitation. So if the precip is here, there's a chance that there's like an anvil shape of cloud up above for any sort of the actual moisture, and turbulence is even higher. So we could conceivably want to actually avoid that. Return back to horizontal mode. Yeah. And so that is that on the weather radar. Let's move on. I gotta move on to more stuff. And final thing that I want to talk about, we are gonna be playing around. Let's say I'm gonna reposition the airplane here to a different airport. I'm gonna go into PHNL, or actually Kona. Why not? And we're going to go onto a 10-mile final. We're going to do some aerial work there, bring the weather up into normal visibility there. I'm just going to play around a little bit around that airport. I'm just going to reload it because it loads quickly. Reasonably quickly, anyway. And I'm going to show you charts. The airplane has the ability to pick up charts from 2 providers at this point. We've there's a lot of add-ons that are able to display a PDF or able to display a picture and tell you, like, okay, you've got charts, cute, right? The reality of it is nobody really wants to maintain a chart database. Like, it's the kind of feature that you turn on, you play around with it for 5 minutes, you maybe take it on a couple of flights, then you get bored and you just throw it away. The reality of it is, unless the charts are actually live updated, it's not going to be much fun. So we've integrated 2 charts providers for now. Yeah, chart time. We've integrated 2 chart providers. One is the FAA, so you get NACO charts, U.S. national charts for the entire U.S. and all territories that they cover. That'll be Hawaii, Guam, and those kinds of places. And we've integrated also another service called autorouter.aero, and that's a service that covers Europe and a bunch of surrounding territories, about 70 countries in total. Both are free.
Airspeed.
And I'm going to basically get the airplane here back under control. Sweet. I'm going to put the headset back on. It's a little bit quieter. We're on Yacht Emperor. I'm going to put the airplane, I don't know, let's say we are about here. Turn on the autopilot, stabilize the flight, and we're just going to mess around a little bit with the charts. So, we're here in Hawaii. It's a U.S. territory. Yeah, it's yeah, exactly right. Autorouter is free, so are the U.S. charts. For Autorouter, you have to create an account, but the account is free. So then all you have to do is on this lower SD card here on the MFD, you just click that. It's going to bring up, your little charts login thing, and once you enter your credentials there, it's going to, put in verify the connection, and it's going to be able to pull charts for the European zones as well. So let's check out over here. Let's say we're going to Kona, and we're going to perform that as our sort of approach here. So I'm going to flight plan. I'm going to make this into a 2D screen because it's a little bit easier to see. So I'm going to go into menu, delete U, bring up the cursor here. I'm going to use my keyboard. So PHKO, enter, enter. PHKO is our destination. We're going to go into procedures, select an approach. And let's say we want to select an ILS approach from runway 17. Sure, looks about right from our present position. So I don't know what the approaches there are currently. Let's say there's some vectors. I'm going to program in some minimums, and we're going to verify all that with the chart here in just a sec. So just going to punch that in, and we're going to go straight into activating the approach. So that's that. Activate. Sweet. And so there's going to be, if we jump back out here, there's a button here that says show chart. So let's get to show chart. The thing already understands that we are going to be going to Kona. If you want to change, obviously, the destination, you can punch in any other destination you want. So let's say you want to go to San Francisco, so it's just going to type in SFO and hit enter, and it's going to load in the charts for SFO. We're going to go to PHKO. For the US, you can use abbreviated names, so 3-letter identifiers. Everywhere else, you got to use the full ICAO identifier of the field. So there's Kona, and this is live downloaded from the FAA. So this is not actually something I had stored on my disk. On the chart, we can obviously do things like you can fit the width. You can switch it over to a night mode chart, which just inverts colors. You can switch the display over to full screen mode. You've got still the ability to select the chart and that kind of stuff, but you also get a more full display here. You can, for charts that are rotated in a weird way, you can rotate them around, and that kind of good stuff. For the additional fields or pieces of information that we can get, is we can get, for example, weather information. So this is live METAR and TAP data. Are they moving maps? So they are not currently. With what you're thinking about is georeferencing. Prime Coder, I'm going to show you the European charts here in just a sec. As soon as we land, I'm going to go to the European charts. And we've got your departure procedure sections here. Got your standard instrument arrivals and approaches. And if we go and select this here drop down, we can go and select any chart you want to have a look at. Let's go into this one. Okay, and we want to check. We've got the ILS or localizer 17 at Onizuka Kona. And obviously you do all your charty stuff, all your good stuff that you already know how to do. We know the approach starts from 3,000 feet, and we are at 2,300, so let's bring ourselves up to 3,000 feet. Obviously you'd be doing this more properly than I am. Right now I'm just messing around with the avionics. Minimums for straight in are 200 feet AGL or 247. We're going to round that up to 250, so I'm going to bring up our little PFD here. Timer reference, that contains our minimum. Go into minimum section here. Roll this up to 250 feet. There's a minimum set. Cool. Minimums are set. Do these charts update automatically? It's fully automated. It's live downloaded. Not even like update. It's just comes in over the net. So yes, they are live updated. I'm probably completely away from the airport where I want to be. So I jump out of the charts here, hit go back. Obviously I am completely in the wrong spot here for the approach. So we're just going to drag the airplane. Let's pretend that we've been sort of flying the airplane like normal people. And we're just going to go ahead and turn here to the left. Currently on the GPS section of the approach, so turn in like that. Arm the GPS mode for tracking. Check with the chart. And the approach chart says that at Weki we're supposed to be 3,000 or above. And then Egypt 1,500 or above. We can go back in here and verify that Weki's over there. We're going to be able to make that. We're at 3,000 feet right now. And it's even possible for you to go in here into the charts. If you go to the info page, it's going to give you airport information. So we got to actually select the full screen we got to deselect the full screen display. We'll even get, you know, your ATIS frequencies and all your usual tower frequencies. So if we go in here, we got COM1 radio selected. So we got told to go over to tower frequency. All I have to do in here is go ahead and select tower, hit enter on the keypad. That pre-tunes 120.3 into standby for COM1. Just got to transfer it over to the active, and I'm talking to tower. Gordon, you can overcome the autopilot. It's not a problem. It's gives you a bit of a workout, but yeah, you can overcome the autopilot. The autopilot actually, in case the autopilot's doing something bad, here's the autopilot disconnect and trim disconnect switch. That's your backup system for in case the autopilot goes really bad. Go back in here. We're about 4 miles from the intercept here, so I'm going to start decelerating the airplane. I'm going to switch on the pulse system, so you'll see that the airplane's going to start showing the blinky lights up there. So for a path intercept, it's usually a little bit better to make it a little bit more shallow. I'm actually going to declutter the display here. Let's pretend we're good pilots, go into the checklists. Bring up the little keypad here so I can quickly navigate, and I'm going to select the approach checklist here. So approach items are altimeters, let's say we're checked, fuel gauges are looking good, we got the fullest tank selected, inertial separator switch is on, it's indicating. Check, and landing lights, we've got the pulse system on, so that's all good. Go to the next checklist, hit the next key, there we go, checklist is complete. Next is going to be the landing checklist. Let's return back to the map, check our situation here. And we are again in, we've got the synthetic vision here so we can actually see all the terrain around. Let's verify on our flight plan. It says we want to be, actually, it wants to Waikiki at 1,500 feet. Verify that with the chart here, because I'm not really trusting that autopilot as much as I trust the actual chart. So approach chart. Oh, it definitely says Waikiki at 3,000 or above. Icoa, Egypt, 1,500 feet. And that's the flight slope intercept point. Go back in here. I'm going to trust the chart. I'm not going to trust the coded instrument procedure. Can be a mistake in the database. Yes, Saturday is the confirmed release date. That is in fact correct. We're at a pretty good approach speed here, about 175 knots, 170 something knots. Basically, if you're under 178, you have the ability to drop flaps on gear for the approach, and that's perfect, because as soon as you put those out, the airplane like hits a wall, starts decelerating like crazy, so that's perfect. I'm going to ignore the advisory glide slope here, advisory path here. I'm going to go ahead and do it fully using the ILS. Coming up to Veki, or Weki. Pretty soon the autopilot's going to switch over to ILS guidance mode. Let's go down vertical speed. About 1,000 feet a minute. There we go. Autopilot's just switched over to localizer guidance mode. So approach mode selected. Localizer is selected. Glide slope is armed. Coming down at about 1,000 feet a minute for the glide slope intercept at the Egypt point. We already got the ILS deviation diamond, and we can even identify the radio here, so we'll go ahead. That'll be your audio ID. But it's also identified digitally by the system here. It actually has to listen to the audio code, so this does not come up immediately as you retune it. But we can take a shallower descent here. Perfectly good with this. At Veki, I'm going to select flaps to approach and gear down. Or, I'm sorry, Egypt. That's the name of the point there. Bring this down. We already got the runway inside there. Let's just pretend we want to do the instrument approach sort of properly. Actually, I forgot to check my go-around point and go-around altitude. So, this approach altitude says 5,000 feet actually. So direct 460, right turn, 5,000 direct on the actually intercept the COA, 294 radial to Andes. And so the COA VOR is 112.1. So I'm going to switch you over to here. 112.1. There we go, there's glide slope intercept. I'm going to listen to the second audio. And it's going to identify here. The G1000 had to listen to the full identifier as well, just like me, and now it's identified as well. So that's cool. So actually we want to go ahead and select flaps and gear.
Landing gear. Landing gear.
Start decelerating the airplane there.
Landing gear. Landing gear. Landing gear. Landing gear.
As soon as we're below 122 knots, I'm going to select final flap. Back this away. At this point, we're just going to focus on the instruments here. There we go. Final flap settings coming in. A little bit of power. Just going to bring this up so you guys can see the approach path there. About 15% should do it on the approach for the power to maintain airspeed. That's about right there. It's about right where I want to keep it. So we can go ahead and deselect the autopilot and yaw damper. You'd have the ability to now go ahead and do the checklist for the landing. I'm not going to do that because I know I'm pretty good. Final items, just quickly, verify. Gears down, flaps are down, landing clearance been received.
500.
500 is checked. Yes, I'm using a stick here, just for convenience. Like I don't want to have my, a big yoke on a desk here. I do have a yoke, not a very good one though, so the stick is actually much better. And follow the flight director here, Toto. And we're about 100 above. Runway's in sight. Coming up a little bit above the path.
Minimum.
Continue. Got the runway made if we lose the power. I'm going to disregard the flight director at this point. Okay, center line. Power's coming out. And just keep pitching it up into the flare. Let the speed bleed out.
Airspeed.
And there we go. Select idle reverse, or basically taxi range idle beta. Get rid of you. You can select the flaps up now. Take the headset off. There we go. Apologize for the shimmering. I have my anti-aliasing turned down pretty good because I've got a crappy graphics card here. Okay. All the other stuff, I'm happy. A little break. Now, who is ready for a replay? I certainly am. Let's go ahead and hit the replay button here. We're just going to watch that again. Just going to put the airplane back up into the air, and we're just going to watch that landing there. Glide by from the threshold. And I'm going to turn up the audio so you guys can get a good sound sample. Pretend we're here on the runway threshold. Turn up the audio. It's going to be pretty loud. And don't make fun of my landing. I'll take that. Yeah, sure, if I have just the camera controls band up WASD, so like on a classic, first-person shooter game, That's why I don't have any trouble moving the camera around. I just use WASD to move the camera left, right, that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's jump back into real time here. And let's say I'm just going to quickly taxi over to some ramp here. I don't want to be wasting too much time messing around with taxiing the airplane. I'm just going to show in the meantime. I'm going to jump here into charts. Obviously, you don't want to run over people. Turn on the taxi light, turn off the pulse and strobes. You can turn off the AC, turn off the bleed to let the engine cool. Got a cast message there. It's noted. Let's just park it over here on the ramp. Let's see how good of a parking job I can do from an outside view. Cancel those cautions, and we're pretty much there. And so let's just check the European charts for everybody who's waiting patiently for that. I appreciate your patience, folks. Fairly easy job. Just bring up your little keypad here. I'm going to use that for my convenience. Actually, I didn't want to push that. I want to push that. And we're going to bring the selector back up here into the airport identifier. What airport would you like me to show you? So it's not staged when you tell me which airport you want to see. It's got to be European though. Why the limit? The limit for what? EDDF. Sure. That was kind of easy. Enter. So EDDF, and we're going to bring up the info section here. And there you go. There's EDDF. Now for European charts, the chart style is going to be whatever the host country uses. So it's their national chart. So fortunately, it's not very unified. Everybody uses their own style. LPP actually, so EDDM. Come on. Oh, is an EDDM not available? Oh, it's possible. Apparently they're not there. Woody Fox. Eh. Oh. Wasn't focused there. LZIB. There's LZIB. And ZKPY. I don't know what that is. Is that European or? Yeah, I know EDDM is Munich. I'm just thinking some charts. Oh, LFPN. French charts, Mr. Chu. For some reason, the French authorities thought that they were going to put all the charts in one big file, so it's not immediately displayable on this thing. I don't know why, but it's just one 200-page PDF. EHAM should be there. There we go. It's loading up. Sometimes you got to switch over. AD to EHAM is just the general information, so you want to switch over to the AD chart. Then it's going to bring it up. And there we go. We also wanted to check LPPT, so LPPT. And is LPPT available? Maybe not. So yeah, sometimes the availability of the charts is a little bit sporadic. Lowy I know is available, or should at least be. There we go. It's loading. Yeah. So again, for Lowy, like it brings up by default the what they call the aerodrome information section here. You can see it's a 31-page document. If you go into fit width, you'll be able to make out more detail. This is the usual sort of European style AIP stuff. Yeah, Mr. Chu, Navigraph, we're going to make it available in a future update. We basically got to put the work in there to get Navigraph charts integrated because they're kind of weird. You can paginate through multiple pages. So, for example, for you folks that are in the US, you know, many of the smaller fields don't have an actual chart. You know, you're not actually going to have like an airport layout or many details. SDM does have one. What's one that doesn't have one? Can I drag the chart? No, you got to use the cursor here. So this thing. It's also in the real plane. You got to use that little cursor. It's not a touch screen. 1B8. Yeah, we can try that one. 1B8 apparently doesn't even have SEZ. I know, yeah. So that one actually does have. So this is Sedona, and you'll notice that for airports that do not have a nationally issued aerodrome chart, they'll be coming up with this either the takeoff minimums page or the obstacle or the alternate minimums section. And so for those, the only description of the airport is literally on these documents. So you got to go in here into the chart options, and you got to look for your airport by paginating or finding the correct page. So Sedona is probably going to be, you know, around page 15 or something like that. Rice and Scottsdale. Actually, I went past it. Maybe about there. Stafford, St. George. So Sedona should be on the next page there. Yeah, so for small fields, you probably are going to have to look through the actual takeoff minimum section. Sedona, there it is. So there, that's all the information you get from the FAA with respect to certain fields. So yeah, 1B8. Oh, it has to be boarded and it has to be published by the FAA on their website. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to find it in here. And you could obviously, even this chart, you can invert that, make that into a night chart if you wanted to. And it's actually going to switch over to night mode if it detects. Australian charts are not there. Those are going to be coming when we have the Navigraph integration and a future update available for you folks. Okay, so that's that. Right, so I'm going to wrap this up here. I've been going for about an hour and 20 minutes. So I'll talk to you again tomorrow. What's on the agenda there? Oh, right, we're going to be talking about maintenance. So we're basically going to be breaking the airplane in 10 different ways for your enjoyment. So I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Take care.